Okay, I'm going to show you some of the components inside a computer. In this case, I took off the screen of an iMac and I already disconnected most of the wires and took most of the screws out, so these pieces are a little bit higgledy-piggledy. But the first thing you notice is that a lot of room is taken up by a fan. This cools the main chip. And this right here is the hard disk drive. This is where you store your files, your videos and photos and the like. And this is a hard drive that is a physical hard drive that stores things on a little platter that looks like this, and this has magnetic regions that when this thing spins around, it can read the magnetic regions. If there's magnetism one way, it's a 1. If it's not, it's a 0. These things actually can be replaced, and if you do want to breathe new life into your iMac, you can upgrade it with a solid-state disk drive that doesn't actually spin around. This solid-state disk drive stores the information on chips. These two pieces are the speakers. This is the main power supply, but let me show you some of the more interesting parts. I'm going to take out the fan and the heat sink and this main board. This is called a motherboard. It has the main processor units on it. So your hard drive stores things, but there's also 4 chips here that also have memory. This thing stores things that will disappear when you turn the computer off. So any of the files that save start here, and the computer actually transfers it as it thinks it needs it to these chips, which will store, it's called RAM, random access memory, and these are much faster to be able to send the information to the main processing chip. The main processing chip is underneath this black thing, which is a heat sink, because there are literally billions of transistors on there, and each transistor uses a tiny bit of energy, but all told it uses quite a bit. And so all this elaborate cooling just helps keep the chip from overheating. Just another little pieces of interest. This is a little Wi-Fi board. There's some display controllers, and all the other chips really just support this memory. Support the whole computer functioning. A laptop has the same components, but in a tighter, smaller package. So this main thing that you see is the battery. Again, I took apart all the screws and disconnected everything first. And actually I plugged that back in. And the first thing, the main thing that you see, instead of a hard drive, this is a solid state drive. And this is what stores your files in, but it's in chips instead. It's much like the solid state drive that you can buy for the other one. And this is faster than the spinning hard disk. This thing also has a heat sink to take the heat away from the main chip. The main chip is where all the calculations happen, and it's called the CPU, the Central Processing Unit. In this case, this one I did take off. It has a little gunk on there. This is thermal paste that makes a good thermal connection between this and the heat sink, and the heat sink takes the heat to the fan, which blows it out of the computer. So this chip doesn't look like much, but that's where all the computing power comes from. There is actually more memory inside the CPU, and this is a cache. So even though the regular RAM is very fast, it's still not as fast as the memory which is on the CPU itself. So I'll take a couple more of these cables off, and I'll show you where the regular memory is here on this. And here's the RAM, the 4 chips that will store things as it's being used. So the way the information flows, let's say you want to look at a file, it's stored here. It's taken off of this hard drive, the solid state hard drive, put into memory, and as the computer needs to process it, the CPU will grab it from that memory, stick it in its own cache, and use that to control things like the display by sending the information to this chip.